Hello, this is Craig from bizbox.co.uk. So in this video I'm going to show you just some simple deck building for Shadespire. So yeah, let's just get straight into this one. Okay, so this video is all about deck building, and as you can see I've got loads of cards here in front of me. So out of the starter set we have the cards for the Stormcast Eternals and for the Khorne Bloodbound, as well as the extra deck of cards. Here we have the cards from the Ironjawz expansion and from the Death Rattle as well. As you can see, there's significantly more cards in these decks. So in this video I'm going to go over how the cards work, what your requirements are, etc. And then we'll maybe look into a little bit of deck building and any tips and stuff like that. Now I've only played a few games of this, so I'm by no means an expert, but I will just give you some basic gists. So I'm going to put these two decks to one side for now, and we'll move these over here and we'll just look at what you get in a standard deck. Now of course you get your character cards. I'm not going to explain how they work, but we'll put them to one side. Next you get 22, this is just in the default decks, you do get more in these expanded ones. You get, oh, that's an objective. You get 22 of these cards. These are your power cards. These have the grey back with the bluey-green skull. You have to have at least 20 of these in your deck. You come with 22 in the default deck. So you have a mixture of upgrades and ploys. Now, no more than half of your cards can be ploys. So let's get two examples here. These are good example cards to look at. So you'll notice they have symbols in each corner. Now this cog symbol means this card is an upgrade, and for example this one is Great Strength. So +1 damage to all attack actions with a range of 1 and 2. So that's actually quite a good upgrade to have in your deck. This one is a ploy, as it has a little sword symbol. And it says +1 damage to a first attack action with a range of 1 or 2 in the next activation. So they're quite similar. But an upgrade, you'd give this to one of your characters. So let's say we give it to Severin Steelheart. So all his attacks would now be +1 damage, meaning that his damage would actually be 4. So that's actually really good. Whereas if I played the Righteous Zeal, that would only apply in the first attack action. However, that would apply to any miniature who you decide to activate, not just a single one. So that's how the difference between a ploy and an upgrade works. So an upgrade will stay on your miniature, and some of them will stay down the bottom. We have one here, restricted to Oberyn. So some of them are restricted to certain characters, so it's worth noticing that. Next we have a symbol in the upper right hand corner. This one is clearly a Stormcast Eternal symbol, and if you're not sure what symbol your clan is, the same symbol will appear on their card there. Now this other symbol is just a skull, and this is a generic symbol, not to be confused with the skull symbol that you get on the death cards. So this means any warband can take the Great Strength card in their deck. Now this is important because you cannot give the Stormcast Eternal ones to the Khorne player, for example, so they wouldn't be able to have a Righteous Zeal card. So it's very important when you build your deck, and it's definitely worth looking over which cards are specifically for your warband, because they do tend to suit them a little bit better. So we shall put these back in there. And now we have the objective cards. So again, the same thing applies. In the right hand corner there's generic ones and warband specific ones. Also on the objective card, down the bottom is how much glory you achieve for each one. And of course the harder the objective is, the more glory you will achieve. Now in the default decks you get 12 of these, and that is the exact number of objective cards you have in your deck. You cannot have any more or no less, and 5 is right out. So yeah, you must have exactly 12 objective cards, and this is probably a very important part of deck building, is choosing the right objectives. Now, of course, you don't know how the game's going to go, So you don't know how easy some will be to achieve in a certain game, but try and pick some what sort of suited to your playstyle. I found like these hold objective cards, they're okay, but if you've got a slow army such as the Death Rattle, they're probably not going to be worth having in your deck. Whereas if you've got a fast army like Garrick's Reavers, then you're more likely to achieve these cards. So things like that are worth bearing in mind. Unless, of course, these objectives are on your side of the board, but you just don't... There's no way of knowing that until you play the game, of course. The Annihilation card is a good one of mine. Scores at end of phase if all enemy fighters have been taken out of action. Basically, if you kill the other warband and you have this card, you will probably win, because it's 5 glory. And, yeah, in the one game that I did achieve this, I ended up with a lot of glory. You'll notice on the objective cards as well, there's a 3/4. This means if you're playing with 3 or 4 players, then you have a different objective. So 2 or more warbands must be entirely out of action to achieve this one. So bear that in mind if you're playing larger games with more players, that some objectives will be harder to achieve. It's also worth noting that these hold objective cards only come in the standard set, the ones for holding different objectives. There are some in the expanded sets for holding more than one objective, but just for holding the individual objectives, you'll just find them in these main sets. So I'm not going to get too complex here. I am eventually going to mix and match some decks and that to build my own custom decks. But in this video, I think I'm just going to build one for the Stormcast Eternal using the extra cards from the starter set. So, the first thing to do, if we're building them for Steel Hearts Champion, is to take out all the Khorne cards. We don't want them. So we'll put them to one side, and we will take out... I'm basically going to... What I'll do is I'll arrange them in generic, Stormcast, and Khorne. So you don't get many Khorne cards. So these are the power cards I'm playing with, by the way. We also have objectives, and I'm going to do the same thing with them. Just discard the Khorne ones. So we'll put the Khorne ones over there, and then we have some default ones as well. So with the power cards, you could just bung all of them into your deck and have a really large power deck. So let's just sort these cards out. So for example, I can take all these, and now I've got a really large power deck. Now, when I first read about the power deck and I noticed there's no upper limit, I thought, oh, that's great, we can stick loads of cards in, it could be really fun. But these are drawn randomly. So if you have too many cards in your deck, then the likelihood of getting the one you want, or a few that you want, is obviously very slim. So I recommend actually just having a deck of 20, maybe 25. I wouldn't say no more than 30, definitely. You're only going to draw 15 of these out in an average game. So bear that in mind. I think you do only draw the 15 out. Oh, unless you have certain instances what lets you draw extra power cards, of course. But on an average game, you're going to get about 15, maybe 17 if you get certain ploys. And then there are ploys what will let you get extra cards. So if you want to build a bigger deck, then it's probably worth putting them cards in. So of course we cannot have more than half ploys upgrades. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is separate them by ploys and upgrades. Now, of course, before you play the game, you want to give these a good old shuffle as well. Our last game that we played on the channel, by the time this video goes out, I kept getting a lot of upgrade cards, which was not good. So, bear with me, I know this is boring, but... And I think I will have to count these out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So you have 18. So here that would be a legal deck. Now that's 36 cards if my maths is correct. I feel embarrassed if that was wrong. So that's probably too much for a deck. So now I would just say, look, we've got 2 sprint ones. We probably don't need them. We've got 2 Shardfalls. We probably don't need them. Now, I'm not a massive fan of the Shardfall card anyway, so I'm probably going to discard both of them. So that's now put us down to 33. And it's just a case of going through which cards you think best suit you. Now, it really depends sort of on your warband. Certainly look for your warband's weaknesses. I find with the Death Rattle, for example, they don't deal out a lot of damage, especially not until they're inspired. So any cards that increase damage are well worth having, especially like upgrade cards and ploys. Always have Healing Potion. I think Healing Potion is brilliant. It's one of the best cards in the game, in my opinion. Someone will probably comment saying, "No, this card's much better," which probably is. I've only played a few games, but Healing Potion is a great card to have. You automatically heal a wound, and on a shield or a critical, you actually heal another wound. That's really good. Again, this is one of them cards that might not be as handy for the Corn or the Death Rattle, because they don't have as many wounds, and sort of with the Death Rattle you sort of want them to die. But for the Iron Jaws and for your Stormcast especially, this is a very valuable card. Having it for the Iron Jaws is just crazy, because they are hard enough to kill as it is. Again, Unstoppable Strike is another one that says the attack action and next activation gains Cleave. Now, Cleave is an okay ability to have, but if you're playing against Corn or the Death Rattle, they don't have the shield defense dice anyway, unless they go on guard. And we tend not to go on guard very often in the game. So yeah, it's not always great to have Cleave if you're playing against them, but if you're playing against Orcs then, or other Stormcast, then it's absolutely fantastic. Confusion is one that's okay. You can just switch 2 fighters around. That's quite good. I'm not going to go through every card here, but so Heroic Guard's quite a nice one to have. So it's just a case of going through some that will suit your play style, and some of them as well. An upgrade can actually give you a different weapon to use. We have 2 disengage cards there, so we can get rid of one of them. 2 total offenses, so we'll get rid of one of them. And then we have different upgrade cards for characters as well. Now, you might play tactically where you sacrifice one of your characters sort of early on, so maybe you wouldn't want them to have any upgrades. Someone who might go straight into a fight just to get a few kills and glory points early. However, you might want to give them 1+ wound. And it's also worth remembering as well that you can't play any upgrade cards until you actually earn some glory, so you do need to kill people first. So yeah, that's how you'd sort of go through building a deck like that. Now I haven't gone into great detail. I could take generic cards out of this deck and out of this one and really go to town and build a really cool deck, which is something I will do. However, I don't want to do it on this video because, you know, this could be a very, very long video if I was to do that. But yeah, definitely look at what your weaknesses are and try and have cards what will help boost that. Now when it comes to objectives, it's worth looking at what your strengths are and then try to boost or try and achieve objectives based on your strength. Now, as I said before, you have to have 12, so if I was going to add these 4 objective cards from the extra deck, I would have to take 4 out of here. So some are like quite difficult to do. Like Cleanse, it says, scoreless at the end phase if you hold all the objectives in an enemy territory. Again, this would not be a very good card to have. I know it's for Stormcast, so, but if you're like Death Rattle or something, it wouldn't be too easy to get. And with Stormcast as well, as they only have the 3 characters, sometimes there might be 3 objectives in your enemy's territory, so you'd have to get all 3 of them over there to do it, so it'd be quite a difficult one to achieve. Even though it's free glory, I probably wouldn't use it. Consecrated Area, scoreless at end phase if there are no enemy fighters adjacent to your fighters. Again, this is one that it could be worth having if you sort of end up killing any fighters who are adjacent to you during the turn, then certainly you'd get that glory, so it's probably a good one to have. I'll put that in the maybe pile. Scores at the end of your phase if some friendly fighter has held the same objective at the end of 2 consecutive action phases. That's not too difficult to get because it's only action phases and not turns, I believe. Or it might be turns. I don't know. I think the action phase is just when you activate. It's only 1 glory, so I'd assume so. And then we have scoreless in the end phase if you hold an objective in an enemy territory. So that's not too difficult to get. Again, only the 1 glory. And then of course we have the different hold objectives. Annihilation, as we mentioned before, is a really good one to get. Scores at an end phase of none of your fighters suffered any damage in the preceding action phase. Scoreless immediately if an enemy fighter is taken out of action by a charge action made by one of your fighters. So that's a really handy card to have. It's quite easy to achieve, so you definitely have that in your Stormcast deck. Because, you know, charging and killing players is part of the game, so... Denial's actually a really good one to have. Scoreless in the end phase if there are no enemy fighters in your territory. It is actually quite easy to achieve, I find. If you're quite a strong army like the Iron Jaws or Stormcast, then it is quite achievable. Just try and keep them bad guys out of your territory. So for 3 glory, it's a really good one to have. Eternal, scoreless in the end phase if none of your fighters are out of action. Now that is quite possible with the Stormcast, as they are quite difficult to kill. So again, that is one I would definitely have in my deck. Scoreless immediate if your warband has taken 2 or more fighters out of action in this phase. Again, if you're playing against Khorne or the Death Rattle, then very easy one to get. And then we've just got different hold objective numbers. So yeah, I've sort of just put these in random piles, but there's definitely some that I would definitely have and some that I definitely wouldn't. So I actually think just the standard deck you come with for Stormcast is actually pretty good. However, if you have these other decks and want to choose generic cards from them, I would probably get rid of some of the hold objective cards, because whilst they're okay, and they can just be easy glory, they're very circumstantial, of course, because it all depends where the objectives are on the board and which cards you draw. So the likelihood of getting one that you want, I wouldn't say it's fairly slim, but it's, you know, it's just random at the end of the day. I don't know what the exact odds are on that. I'm sure someone can work it out. But yeah, that's just the basics of deck building. So just to summarise, now I've only gone through these, the extra deck and the basic decks from the starter set, but once you get into these you can really just go mad at it. So yeah, anyway, summarise, because I am just babbling on now. 12 objective cards, so choose them wisely. Choose ones that you think are more likely to be achieved by your warband. Don't always go for ones that are really high glory, even though glory will win you the games. It's no good having a 3 or 5 glory point card if it's very unlikely you're ever going to achieve it. When it comes to the ploys and upgrades, definitely have some that will play and help your weaknesses. So if you do low damage, definitely have some that will increase your damage. If you're quite slow, have some that will increase your speed. The healing potion is a great card to have. And yeah, keep your deck size around 20 or 30. That's what I think. I might try some games with just a 20 deck card carefully. Yeah, 20 card deck carefully picked out. And remember, no more than half can be ploys. And I like to just have a 50-50 split. I do usually prefer ploys than upgrades, because upgrades obviously are not very good early on in the game, so you want to have your ploys, really. But yeah, that was the basics of deck building in Shadespire. I would love to hear anyone's opinions on these. If there's any certain cards that you think are really great for a certain warband, or if you have any loadouts and decks that you use. I know GW posted one up from one of their tournaments recently for the Death Rattle. So yeah, any decks that you guys like, then please do list them below, and I can try them out in games, and maybe we'll even get some filmed using the decks that you guys recommend. That would be really cool. I look forward to the future when some more warbands come out and we have even more cards to choose from. But in the meantime, I'm going to sort out through these cards and build a couple of decks for my other warbands. So thanks so much for watching. I hope this video has been enjoyable, and I hope it's helped a few guys who are just starting out in Shadespire and ready to delve into deck building. So if you have enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. We're going to put up more Shadespire videos in the future, as well as other games as well. And thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.